What if I told you that the terrifying nun from The Conjuring is nothing but a mask, an illusion hiding the real face of an ancient spirit? Most people think they know who is Valac because of Hollywood, but the Valac real story goes far beyond the screen. This is not just about jump scares, it's about a presence buried in forbidden grimoires, commanding 30 legions and whispering secrets about wealth, serpents, and the price of obsession. And before we dive deeper into this forbidden mystery, let me ask you something. Do you want to keep uncovering truths that most people will never dare to face? Then hit subscribe right now, activate the notifications, and join this journey. Because what I'm about to reveal about Valac Demon, the so-called demonic nun, will change the way you see every horror movie, every occult story, and maybe even your own desires. What if the terrifying nun that haunted The Conjuring was never the real story at all, but merely a Hollywood costume designed to hide something much older? Those who ask, who is Valac, usually fall into the trap of believing cinema is the only source. Yet behind the makeup of Valac, The Conjuring, lies the shadow of a presence mentioned in ancient grimoires. Valac, explained in detail, is not a demon invented by scriptwriters. It is a secret buried in dusty manuscripts, where the ink of sorcerers whispered of an entity both radiant and horrifying. The real story of Valac is not about cheap jump scares, but about an entity whose name has been uttered in fear for centuries. Once you realize this, the question becomes unsettling. Have we been deceived into fearing a mask while ignoring the actual face of the Valac demonology tradition? For centuries, scribes and occultists recorded the existence of this figure, hidden from the public yet alive in the underground stream of forbidden knowledge. When someone today watches Valac horror movies or asks about the Valac nun, they rarely connect it with the Ars Goetia Valac that once guided magicians to unearth hidden truths. Picture this. In medieval Europe, while priests preached salvation, some seekers read manuscripts by candlelight, whispering the name of Valac's spirit demon. They weren't calling upon a cinematic ghost. They were bargaining with a force that demanded obedience and respect. To those who dared, Valac, explained, meant discovering not only treasures, but the serpentine dangers tied to desire. This was no simple story. It was a confrontation with something that lived between myth and reality. Think of how stories evolve. A myth told around firelight transforms across centuries until it becomes a blockbuster franchise. But the Valac real demon was never meant to entertain. It was meant to warn. Old grimoires painted him not as a nun, but as a child with angelic wings riding a dragon, an image that hides both innocence and terror. This childlike mask unsettles even more than the demonic veil of Valac The Conjuring 2, because purity mixed with corruption confuses the human mind. It's easy to reject a monster, but what about something that looks almost sacred? That paradox is what kept the Valac mythology alive. By disguising itself in forms that oscillate between pure and vile, Demon Valac, explained, becomes not just an entity, but a riddle the soul cannot easily solve. If you pause for a moment, you'll see how this pattern repeats in life. How many times do we encounter situations that look harmless on the surface, yet conceal destructive power underneath? That's the essence of Valac occult truth. The idea that behind beauty or innocence may lie a serpent coiled in silence. In the same way that one might be tempted by sudden wealth, praise, or status, the whisper of Valac real explanation draws humans into believing they can have it all without paying a price. It is never that simple. Many who tried found that what was given with one hand was silently stolen with the other. That duality is why some call Valac not just a demon, but a mirror of our hidden desires, our obsession with power, and our blindness to consequence. Now imagine being a seeker in the Middle Ages. The church tells you one story, but the hidden manuscripts tell another. You stumble upon a page describing Valac 30 legions, an entity said to command an invisible army. Would you dare to summon him, just to test if the myth was real? Some did, and the accounts speak of treasures revealed but lives broken. This is why modern believers say the demon from The Conjuring is only a shadow of the truth. To face the real story of Valac means to face the human appetite for knowledge that was never meant to be touched. It's as if Valac demonic entity is not only external, but also the hunger that burns inside every human heart for more than it should handle. And isn't that hunger still alive today? Look around. People chase quick money, forbidden pleasures, shortcuts to power. The shadow of Valac obsession moves through our modern culture, just as it did through dusty libraries centuries ago. That's why the reinvention of Valac demonic nun in movies resonates so deeply. It mirrors our fear of hidden forces disguised as familiar figures. A nun is supposed to represent purity, yet in Valac Conjuring 2, the mask was twisted to represent horror. This inversion is not random. It's symbolic of how darkness always tries to hide inside what looks sacred. And when you peel back that disguise, you find the same voice whispered in grimoires long before cinema was ever invented. This whisper is not just a story, it is a current of energy that has flowed across centuries, feeding those who dared to listen. The Valac true origin is not a film set, but the echo of rituals, pacts, and fearful prayers uttered in secret chambers. To ignore that is to misunderstand the entity completely. It's easy to dismiss Valac the Nun Explained as a work of fiction, but when compared with the Valac Goetia manuscripts, the differences are startling. One is designed for entertainment, the other for transformation, dangerous, often irreversible transformation, and those who engaged with this spirit knew one thing: once you opened the door, the whisper never left. It clung, it haunted, it tempted, urging the seeker deeper into its mystery. So the question lingers: was the nun on the screen just a convenient costume to keep us from seeing the real demon? Or is it possible that by trivializing him, Hollywood ensured his name would be spoken by millions, feeding the current of his presence in ways medieval magicians could only dream of? The demon Valac truth is stranger than any script. What begins as entertainment can become invocation, and what starts as curiosity may awaken doors best left closed. Which brings us to the next shadow, where the origins of this entity in the Ars Goetia begin to reveal themselves. In the shadows of medieval libraries, hidden behind prayers and psalms, lies the first true record of Valac demon. The Ars Goetia Valac does not describe a nun, but a child with angelic wings, riding a two-headed dragon. Imagine the shock of readers who expected a monster but found innocence on the page. Yet those who truly ask who is Valac know that appearances deceive. This is Valac explained in detail. Purity masking serpentine danger. He is listed among the 72 spirits of the Lemegeton, and unlike the cinematic Valac horror movies, his image was designed to confuse the human mind. When an angelic child commands 30 legions of demons, it forces us to question how power often hides under guises of innocence. Occultists recorded him with a curious reverence, as if they recognized the paradox. Here was a Valac real demon who appeared harmless but carried dominion over hidden forces. Think of the old magicians, drawing circles on the ground, chanting verses from grimoires. They did not call upon the Valac nun from Hollywood, but upon the spirit who held sway over serpents and treasure. And when they invoked Valac conjuring demon in secret chambers, they believed they were bargaining not with fiction, but with a force capable of bending the physical world. To them, Demon Valac Explained was not entertainment, it was survival. A gamble with consequences too high for most to risk. It's worth pausing to notice how unsettling this imagery is. Why would a demon appear as a child? Psychologically, it disarms the seeker. One's guard drops when faced with innocence, making one vulnerable. And yet that's precisely the trick of Valac mythology. The Valac true origin as recorded in the Ars Goetia tells us that his role is to reveal hidden treasures and serpents, innocence riding corruption, light balancing shadow. This paradox forces us to see the Valac spirit demon not as simple evil, but as an archetype of confusion. Those who think they know the conjuring demon are missing this deeper enigma, buried in old texts that speak louder than cinema ever could. Let's bring this closer to life. Imagine someone today who seems utterly harmless, perhaps a childlike figure or a kind face. That person might carry influence far beyond what meets the eye. This is how Valac Explained works in everyday reality. It's a warning against underestimating appearances. Just as the Goetia shows Valac demonic entity cloaked in purity, life often hides power inside unexpected vessels. A boss who appears weak but pulls strings behind the scenes, or a friend who looks innocent but can manipulate entire groups. The story of Valac Goetia mirrors these real dynamics, reminding us that truth is never as obvious as it first appears. And consider the dragon, not one, but two heads beneath the child's control. This is not random symbolism. It reflects duality, the balance between forces that threaten to tear apart the human soul. The real story of Valac is that he doesn't just command serpents, but he rides chaos itself, taming it like a master of paradox. When modern films reduce him to the Valac demonic nun, they strip away this layered meaning. Yet the seeker who dives into the Valac occult truth cannot ignore it. The dragon is temptation, danger, and hidden wisdom bound together. And to see a child command such power is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The Grimoires also state his role with chilling precision. He reveals the whereabouts of hidden treasures, especially those protected by serpents. Think of what this meant in a medieval world obsessed with gold and relics. To invoke Valac explained in detail was to ask for wealth, but at the risk of one's soul. Isn't it the same today? People chase prosperity through risky deals, often sacrificing freedom and peace for the illusion of abundance. That's why Valac real explanation speaks louder than we think. It's not just about serpents or dragons, but about the endless temptation of hidden riches and the price attached to them. Some scholars argue that the angelic form of demon Valac truth is meant to remind us that even light can deceive. What we assume to be holy might carry the seeds of ruin. By commanding serpents, Valac becomes both guide and destroyer. This is why the Valac demonic nun resonates so strongly with audiences. It dramatizes this very paradox. A nun should embody purity, yet when inverted, she becomes terror itself. And so the Valac real story is not just about a demon, but about the human inability to distinguish good from evil when they wear the same mask. This is where the whisper deepens. For if Valac is truly a child riding a dragon, both innocent and corrupted, what does that say about the very nature of duality? Perhaps he is not only a demon in the Goetia, but a mirror of the seeker's own divided heart. And that opens the door to another disturbing question. How can someone be both angel and serpent, both guide and destroyer, at the same time? The answer lies in the next revelation, where his dual mask will be fully unveiled. When seekers open the Grimoires and encounter Valac demon, they are immediately struck by the paradox. A childlike figure with wings of light, seated upon a monstrous dragon. What could this possibly mean? Those who ask who is Valac often expect a simple answer, but the texts refuse simplicity. This is Valac explained in detail. He is both innocence and terror, an angel and a serpent entwined. The Valac real story reminds us that demons do not always wear monstrous faces. Sometimes the mask of purity hides a deeper corruption, and sometimes what we call corruption hides the seed of wisdom. This duality is not an accident. It is the essence of Valac occult truth. Think of how often in life we meet people or situations that carry two contradictory faces: the friend who comforts you yet manipulates you, the opportunity that promises wealth yet chains you to debt. That's the same paradox that defines Valac mythology. In one hand, he is light, the childlike guide who promises clarity. In the other, he is shadow, the rider of serpents who guards forbidden treasures. Demon Valac explained is not about choosing one side, but realizing that both sides exist simultaneously. The seeker who ignores this risks falling for illusions, mistaking the angel for salvation or the serpent for ruin, when in truth they are bound together. This is why Valac demonic entity is considered both dangerous and fascinating. He is the trickster archetype, the cosmic joker who plays with human perception. Just as the trickster gods of mythology blurred the lines between good and evil, Valac spirit demon challenges seekers to confront their own blindness. The Valac true origin in the Ars Goetia shows this clearly. He is not pure evil, but a test. Those who think the Valac nun in the Conjuring demon is his true face miss the point entirely. The real riddle is not what he looks like, but how he manipulates the human heart through contradiction. Picture this. A man prays for riches, invoking Valac Conjuring demon, and suddenly finds hidden treasure. Yet within weeks, his family turns against him, his health collapses, or his mind obsesses endlessly over losing it. This is the mask of the serpent biting back after the angel smiled. Such stories reveal the demon Valac truth. He does not simply give, he tests. To understand Valac real explanation is to see beyond the surface. Life, like Valac, often offers gifts wrapped in poison, and the one who cannot discern the dual mask will always pay a price greater than the reward. This dual nature also explains why Hollywood chose to portray him as a nun. The Valac demonic nun symbolizes the inversion of purity, the angelic mask flipped into horror. But beneath this disguise, the Valac Goetia account remains unchanged, a child with wings, riding serpents. This tension between angel and beast creates a psychological terror far deeper than jump scares. Humans fear contradiction because it unsettles the mind. When we cannot categorize something as wholly good or evil, we become disoriented. That disorientation is the true power of Valac explained, forcing us to confront our own uncertainty about reality. Even in personal life, this lesson applies. A business opportunity that looks perfect may hide risks. A relationship that feels blissful may carry shadows unseen. This is why Valac obsession continues to haunt seekers, the reminder that nothing comes without duality. The mask of light can conceal chains, and the serpent of darkness may conceal wisdom. The trick is discernment, and those who fail to recognize this will fall prey to the same illusions medieval magicians faced when invoking the Ars Goetia Valac. So when the seeker asks who is Valac, the answer is unsettling. He is both angel and serpent, purity and corruption, gift and curse. His image is a mirror for the human soul, showing us how we also wear masks that confuse even ourselves. And this paradox is not just symbolic. It manifests through the serpent imagery he carries. For to understand Valac fully, one must follow the serpents, those guardians of hidden knowledge, winding their way into the forbidden realms that lie ahead. The serpents of Valac demon are not mere animals, they are symbols, guardians of truths locked away from ordinary eyes. When Grimoires mention him as the ruler over serpents, they are not speaking of reptiles slithering in the dark, but of forces that coil around forbidden wisdom. Those who ask who is Valac must realize that serpents in occult tradition are never simple. They mark thresholds, gateways into hidden realms where enlightenment and destruction intertwine. The Valac explained in detail tradition tells us that the serpent is both protector and punisher. It allows the worthy to pass, but devours the unprepared. And within this paradox lies the Valac occult truth. Knowledge is always dangerous when taken without reverence. Consider how often serpents appear across cultures. In Genesis, the serpent offered forbidden fruit, knowledge that cost humanity paradise. In Egypt, serpents guarded pharaohs as divine protectors. In alchemy, the Ouroboros, a serpent devouring its own tail, became the symbol of eternity and rebirth. Valac mythology taps into this universal pattern. His serpents are not random companions. They embody the duality of wisdom and ruin. When someone today obsesses over the Valac real demon, they are tapping into an archetype older than any religion, the belief that true power hides behind something feared. The Valac true origin makes sense only when we understand that serpents always guard treasure, material or spiritual. Now think of the serpent as a test. Imagine a seeker invoking Valac Goetia, asking for wealth or guidance. What comes first? Not gold, but the serpent, wrapping itself around the desire, hissing, "Are you ready to pay the price?" The demon Valac truth lies here. The serpent is the gatekeeper of hidden gnosis. You can have the treasure, but you must endure the venom. This mirrors life itself. A student may crave mastery, but must endure the pain of discipline. An investor may desire riches, but must face sleepless nights and risks. In each case, the serpent asks, "Do you truly want what you seek?" That is Valac explained. It's fascinating to note how Hollywood portrayed this. In Valac horror movies, the serpent imagery is often erased, replaced with jump scares. But the Valac demonic nun hides this deeper layer. Behind the nun's veil lies the ancient truth of serpents. Those serpents symbolize the obsessions that coil in our subconscious, whispering promises of wisdom if we only dare to reach. The Valac real explanation is not about monsters in the dark, but about the human soul confronting its deepest cravings. We fear serpents not because of their fangs, but because they mirror the hidden instincts within ourselves. This symbolism continues in the way serpents are always linked with treasure. A dragon guards gold, a snake protects a sacred temple, and in the case of Valac, 30 legions, serpents encircle secrets too potent for ordinary men. The seeker who pursues this path discovers the Valac spirit demon is not simply about wealth, It is about the knowledge behind wealth. The Serpents force us to see that prosperity is never free. It is guarded, defended, and dangerous. The Valac demonic entity reminds us that every shortcut comes with venom, and only the one prepared to endure it can truly claim the prize. This lesson is practical even outside of esotericism. Knowledge today is still guarded by serpents. Think of someone chasing financial independence. They must learn taxes, investments, strategies, and endure failures before tasting success. Those failures are the serpents, or someone craving inner peace. They must face their traumas and fears, the serpents of their own psyche, before finding clarity. In each case, the Valac explained in detail, archetype plays out in real life. Serpents coil around transformation, making sure no one passes untested. And isn't that exactly why seekers become obsessed with Valac obsession? Because he represents the gatekeeper of forbidden progress. So when one studies the real story of Valac, the serpents cannot be ignored. They embody the threshold between ignorance and revelation, poverty and abundance, blindness and vision. The Valac conjuring demon may have been remade into a cinematic scare, but in truth, the serpents remain his eternal companions. They hiss at the edges of human desire, daring us to take one step further. And if you follow them, you come to another unsettling gift, one of the most dangerous powers Valac is said to possess, the revelation of hidden treasures waiting beneath the earth. Among the many gifts attributed to Valac demon, none is more alluring or more feared than his ability to reveal hidden treasures. In the Ars Goetia Valac, the texts describe him as a spirit capable of showing where gold, jewels, and secret riches lie beneath the ground. Those who ask who is Valac often imagine cinematic terror, but the Valac real story shows him as a force tied to prosperity and danger. Treasure in his hands is never free. It carries serpents, curses, and chains. The Valac explained in detail accounts warn that while he may lead you to wealth, the cost will ripple through your life like venom. It is the same as asking, what is more dangerous, the treasure itself or the spirit who offers it? The connection between treasure and demons runs deep in human mythology. From cursed pharaohs' tombs to gold guarded by dragons, wealth is rarely portrayed as pure. The demon Valac truth aligns with this archetype. Wealth revealed by his guidance often becomes poison to the soul. Think of the countless stories where sudden money destroys families, friendships, and health. The Valac occult truth reflects this reality. When treasure comes through forbidden means, it never blesses, it binds. This is why the Valac real explanation is not simply about wealth, but about temptation disguised as reward. Riches uncovered through him become a test of character, and many fail. Imagine, for instance, a medieval seeker invoking Valac's spirit demon in desperation. He asks for gold to feed his family, and suddenly stumbles upon a hidden cache. At first, it feels like salvation. But soon, greed consumes him. Neighbors envy him, and enemies rise from nowhere. The treasure becomes a curse heavier than poverty ever was. This is how the Valac mythology plays out in life. What starts as blessing becomes prison. The Valac demonic entity doesn't lie. He delivers. But the price is hidden in the fine print of the pact. That's why the real story of Valac echoes so strongly even today. And haven't we seen the same pattern in modern times? People win the lottery and end up broke. Investors chase risky schemes and lose their peace of mind. Every time someone searches for shortcuts to prosperity, they walk the same path as those who invoked the Valac conjuring demon. The serpents guarding treasure are metaphors for responsibility, discipline, and consequence. Without them, wealth becomes ruin. This is why Valac explained continues to fascinate seekers. He is not just a demon in Grimoires or Valac horror movies. He is the living metaphor of humanity's obsession with quick prosperity. It's telling that Hollywood reshaped this aspect entirely. In Valac the Conjuring 2, the focus is fear, not treasure. But the Valac true origin shows that treasure is central to his role. By erasing this, films miss the profound danger that obsessed magicians, the idea that treasure always comes tied to chains. The Valac demonic nun mask may be frightening, but the deeper horror is subtler. The knowledge that hidden wealth can enslave the seeker more effectively than poverty, and once you taste the sweetness of forbidden prosperity, it's almost impossible to spit it out. That is the venom of Valac obsession. This lesson holds power in everyday life. Think of someone offered a shady deal that promises huge returns, or someone chasing material wealth at the expense of their health and family. In each case, the shadow of demon Valac explained hovers. The treasure is real, but so is the curse. And those serpents, stress, corruption, greed, coil tighter the more the treasure is pursued. To study Valac Goetia is to confront this timeless warning. Prosperity gained without balance is nothing but golden chains. The Ars Goetia Valac becomes less about summoning demons and more about seeing through illusions that seduce us daily. And so the seeker realizes treasure is never just gold or jewels. It can be knowledge, influence, or even spiritual power. Whatever its form, Valac Real Demon teaches us that treasures beneath the earth always carry a cost. And as the Grimoires whisper, he reveals them only to those who dare. But what happens when this image is torn from the pages of old manuscripts and reshaped into the Hollywood mask of a nun? That transformation, from grimoire to screen, is the next layer of Valac's mystery. When most people today hear the name Valac Demon, they don't picture a child riding a two-headed dragon. They see the terrifying nun from the Conjuring demon franchise. But this image is new, born not from ancient grimoires but from cinema's hunger for fear. Those asking who is Valac often confuse fiction with tradition. The Valac real story is buried in the Ars Goetia Valac, while the nun was a creative invention to shock audiences. Still, there's a deeper question hiding beneath the veil. Why did Hollywood choose a nun? The Valac explained in detailed tradition offers no mention of it. And yet, the nun became the ultimate mask, turning purity into nightmare, faith into terror, and secrecy into obsession. It's worth considering how myths evolve. Once, Valac Goetia was whispered about in candlelit rooms. Now, millions know him through Valac horror movies. This transformation wasn't random. By reshaping the Valac demonic entity into something instantly recognizable, a nun, cinema made him unforgettable. A nun is sacred, trusted, untouchable. But when twisted into the Valac demonic nun, the symbol strikes deeper than a monster ever could. It forces audiences to confront the idea that even the holiest masks can hide corruption. This inversion reflects the Valac occult truth, that light and shadow can share the same face, confusing the seeker into blindness. For many, Valac Conjuring Demon is terrifying precisely because it distorts what is supposed to be safe. People fear clowns, dolls, and nuns because they symbolize innocence. When those symbols are corrupted, the fear multiplies. The Valac true origin might not mention a habit or rosary, but it embodies the same paradox: innocence tied to serpents, light bound to shadow. Hollywood simply translated this into visual language for a modern audience, but in doing so, it also risked trivializing the Valac real explanation. Millions now think of him as only a cinematic scare, while the deeper warnings of the grimoires remain hidden beneath layers of fiction. And yet, perhaps that was the plan. By disguising the real story of Valac as entertainment, the name spreads without suspicion. Every time someone Googles Valac Explained, every time fans debate the demon Valac truth, the current of attention strengthens. Occultists often say spirits feed on obsession, and what better way to cultivate Valac obsession than by turning him into a box office success? While the world laughs, screams, and memes the nun's face, the ancient presence in the grimoires waits, strengthened by every whisper of his name. The Valac mythology evolves, but the power behind it remains. This raises an unsettling possibility. Was the Valac demonic nun mask chosen by accident or by intuition of forces Hollywood couldn't name? After all, cinema often channels archetypes unconsciously. By dressing Valac in a nun's habit, creators tapped into the collective fear of purity turned evil, and though unintentional, they mirrored the very paradox described in the Valac Goetia, angel and serpent fused into one. This makes the Valac Explained in detail narrative even stranger. The movies may be fiction, but in reshaping his form, they revealed truths older than themselves. The mask might be false, but the energy it awakened is very real. And notice how this version spread globally. Few people outside occult circles had heard of the Ars Goetia Valac before 2016. But after The Conjuring 2 introduced the nun, suddenly millions were whispering his name. This shows the double-edged nature of symbols. On one side, The Valac horror movies diluted his image, making it digestible. On the other, they popularized his existence, ensuring the Valac real demon could never again be forgotten. In some ways, this mirrors the way myths survived in the past, by adapting, changing costumes, and hiding behind new masks until the world was ready to rediscover them. So the seeker must ask, is the Valac nun a distortion, or is it simply another layer of his mask? Perhaps both are true. Just as the child riding the dragon revealed innocence in command of serpents, the nun reveals holiness corrupted by shadow. Both forms are mirrors, meant to unsettle the soul. The Valac real explanation is that he cannot be pinned down to one face. He is trickster, serpent, angel, nun, whatever form feeds obsession and confusion. And with each transformation, he whispers more strongly, pulling seekers deeper into his riddle, which leads to the next layer of the mystery. For behind the mask of a nun and the wings of a child lies something far more formidable, the armies he commands. 30 legions of spirits move at his will, unseen yet powerful. To understand Valac fully, one must not only see his masks but also face the silent legion marching in his shadow. The old Grimoires whisper that Valac demon commands 30 legions of spirits, a number that startles anyone who asks who is Valac. Imagine not just one entity, but an entire legion, tens of thousands of spirits, each bound to his command. This is not the Hollywood Valac nun with a single twisted face. This is a sovereign surrounded by an invisible army. The Valac explained in detail texts remind us that numbers in demonology are rarely literal. 30 legions symbolize vast archetypal forces, destructive instincts, and spiritual currents woven together under one banner. The Valac real story isn't just about one demon. It's about the multitude he embodies. To put this in perspective, think of how armies shape history. One general is terrifying enough, but a general with legions behind him reshapes nations. The Valac occult truth works in a similar way. He is not simply a spirit, he is a conductor of invisible forces. Those who try to summon him are not bargaining with a childlike figure, but with the weight of thousands. The Valac mythology tells us that each legion carries knowledge, temptation, and chaos. And when the demon Valac explained accounts say he obeys the magician's call, they also warn to command him is to invite an army into your soul. This symbolism carries a chilling psychological lesson. Every human being already carries legions within, urges, thoughts, and desires pulling in different directions. Valac's spirit demon embodies this chaos, showing us the danger of letting one voice command all the rest. When seekers read the Ars Goetia Valac, they imagine external demons, but the Valac real explanation may be internal as well. 30 legions can be the flood of desires, obsessions, and fears that swarm a person's mind when they crave too much. The demon Valac truth might be that he is not only an entity, but a mirror of our inner armies, and yet the power promised is undeniable. Magicians believed invoking Valac demonic entity could reveal hidden wisdom or treasures guarded by spirits, but the cost, once those legions enter, they do not easily leave. The real story of Valac includes accounts of seekers plagued by restless dreams, possessions of obsession, and voices whispering commands. These were not isolated demons, they were the murmurs of a legion that had been unleashed. That's why the Valac explained warnings emphasize obedience mixed with danger. He may serve, but never without leaving a mark. Now, think of the modern reflection. When someone becomes obsessed with wealth, fame, or even knowledge, it feels like an army has taken over their mind. Sleepless nights, relentless thoughts, uncontrollable cravings. Isn't this the same as being haunted by legions? The Valac conjuring demon may seem far away, but his archetype is present in our daily struggles. Every time obsession takes over, the Valac obsession motif becomes real. He commands not just spirits, but the energy of human desire itself, multiplying it until it overwhelms. That is the invisible legion at work. Hollywood reduced this to the image of a solitary nun, but the Grimoires remind us that the Valac demonic nun is only one mask. Behind it marches 30 legions, and in symbolic terms, those legions can manifest as collective forces, social trends, mob mentality, or even the spread of fear through culture. The Valac horror movies may entertain, but the Valac true origin speaks of something much larger. the terrifying momentum of forces that move unseen, yet shape entire lives. When 30 legions march, even kings bow. So the Seeker must ask, what happens if you summon not just Valac, but the hosts under his command? To bargain with one is dangerous, but to open the gates for many is a risk few would dare. The Ars Goetia Valac does not hide this. It places the warning in plain sight, and yet those who crave too much, treasure, power, forbidden wisdom, ignore it. But what if those legions, once unleashed, cannot be silenced? What if the cost of their obedience is your freedom itself? This leads us to the next more perilous step, the consequences of summoning Valac, and what seekers truly risk when they call upon his name. The Grimoires often describe Valac demon as obedient, but those who ask who is Valac must look closer at the hidden warnings. Yes, the Ars Goetia Valac speaks of him revealing treasures and serpents, but old accounts whisper something else: unpredictability. Summoning the Valac real demon was never a safe bargain. Those who thought they were in control often found themselves entangled in his currents long after the ritual ended. The Valac explained in detail, tradition makes this clear. He gives with one hand, but takes with the other. The gift might be gold, but the cost is freedom. And once the chain is wrapped around the soul, it is not easily broken. Imagine a seeker who calls upon the Valac spirit demon for prosperity. At first, life improves, money flows, opportunities appear, enemies vanish. But then, paranoia creeps in. Friends turn into rivals, health weakens, and dreams become restless. The seeker realizes too late that the demon Valac truth is not just about obedience, it is about entrapment. The Valac mythology teaches that what is granted must be repaid, and repayment comes in chains of obsession, fear, and loss. This is why the Valac occult truth insists that summoning him for selfish gain is like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. Even modern analogies reveal the same pattern. Think of someone chasing shortcuts to wealth or influence. At first, it feels like progress, but soon they are enslaved by stress, sleepless nights, and moral compromise. Isn't that a form of summoning? The Valac explained archetype shows that demons do not always appear in smoke-filled rooms. Sometimes they arrive as obsessions that drain life quietly. The real story of Valac is not confined to ritual chambers. It echoes in boardrooms, casinos, and late-night screens where people gamble their freedom for quick rewards. And each time, the serpent smiles. It's easy to see why Hollywood erased this detail. In Valac horror movies, the focus is pure fear, a nun stalking shadows. But the Valac true origin is far subtler. His danger is not in sudden terror, but in slow decay. The Valac demonic nun may frighten audiences in seconds, but the Valac demonic entity of the Goetia destroys over years. He does not need to kill. He only needs to bind. And once bound, the seeker finds their life reshaped by invisible chains. This is why Demon Valac explained is more disturbing than any jump scare. It is about the erosion of will itself. The consequences also highlight a paradox. Some records show Valac Goetia answering faithfully, delivering treasures without immediate ruin, but even then obsession lingers. The seeker cannot stop thinking about him, cannot stop wondering if more treasure lies hidden. This is the poison of Valac obsession. Even obedience comes with hooks. To invoke him is to invite dependency, the same way a gambler keeps returning to the table. And in that dependency lies the real danger. Freedom is lost long before chains are visible. The Valac real explanation is that power itself becomes the cage. So when seekers ask who is Valac, they must understand he is not just a demon of treasure and serpents, but of consequence. His greatest trick may be convincing mortals that they can bargain safely. But no bargain with such a spirit is ever truly safe. Whether through treasure cursed by greed or dreams haunted by serpents, the price always comes due. The Valac conjuring demon dramatizes this in film, but the Grimoires describe it with chilling precision. What he gives, he eventually takes, and when he takes, he does not ask permission, and yet there is still another layer to this puzzle. For if his gifts enslave, if his treasures corrupt, if his legions bind, then perhaps Valac is more than just a demon. Perhaps he is a symbol, an archetype of desire itself, an image that explains why humans cannot resist forbidden power, which brings us to the deeper philosophical question: is Valac truly an external entity, or is he the living metaphor of humanity's endless hunger? That is the next veil we must lift. When seekers debate the Valac demon, a question inevitably arises: is he truly a being lurking in the shadows, or a symbol carved from humanity's deepest desires? Those who ask who is Valac may expect a clear answer, but the truth is slippery. The Valac explained in detail tradition suggests that he is both an external spirit and an internal archetype. The Valac real story echoes this duality. On one side, magicians invoked him in rituals, speaking of serpents and treasures. On the other, psychologists could see him as a metaphor for obsession, greed, and temptation. The Valac occult truth refuses to let us separate myth from psyche, demon from desire. Consider the power of archetypes in human history. The trickster, the serpent, the child of light, all appear in cultures across the world. The Valac mythology weaves these strands into one figure, forcing seekers to confront the paradox directly. When someone dreams of treasure, obsesses over power, or fears corruption, they are replaying the drama of the demon Valac truth. Whether he exists as a literal Valac spirit demon or as a psychological force hardly matters. The effect is the same. He shapes lives, tempts hearts, and binds the imagination. In this way, Valac explained becomes timeless. Think of how stories affect reality. Myths create real consequences even when they are only stories. The tale of Valac demonic entity inspires both fear and fascination, leading people to act differently, to avoid or to seek forbidden power. That influence makes him real, even if only as energy in the collective mind. The Valac real explanation does not require him to walk in flesh. It requires him to walk in thought. And isn't that what happens with Valac horror movies? Millions fear him, millions speak his name, and millions strengthen the archetype as regardless of whether the Ars Goetia Valac describes a literal being. This dual perspective also mirrors the way we live today. Think of money. Some see it as paper and numbers, others as power and survival. The paper is not alive, but the archetype of money rules the world. In the same way, the Valac conjuring demon may be fiction, yet the archetype it awakens holds power over countless people. The Valac demonic nun frightens because she embodies the corruption of purity. The Valac true origin frightens because it reflects our endless hunger for more. Both forms are real in their effect, even if they differ in appearance. And still, testimonies persist of encounters too strange to dismiss. Seekers claim to have spoken with the Valac real demon, to have heard whispers in the night, to have been led to places they should never have found. Whether these are hallucinations, psychic projections, or true encounters with the Valac Goetia spirit, the result is undeniable. Lives altered, minds consumed, and destinies shifted. This is why the demon Valac explained tradition cannot be reduced to psychology alone. There is a living presence woven through these accounts, something that transcends imagination and refuses to fade. Perhaps the most unsettling truth is that he may be both, an entity feeding on the archetype. The Valac obsession he awakens might not just be metaphorical. When millions fear him, speak of him, or chase his secrets, what if that energy fuels his reality? In this sense, the Valac occult truth suggests a cycle. The archetype sustains the entity, and the entity strengthens the archetype. This is not unlike how deities grow stronger through worship, or how myths gain more power the more they are told. The real story of Valac may be that belief itself is his true body. So where does this leave the seeker? Whether demon or archetype, symbol or sovereign, Valac remains dangerous. To confront him is to confront your own hunger, your own masks, your own legions of desire. The Valac explained in detail, accounts do not give neat answers because the riddle is designed to unsettle, but perhaps the final mask reveals the deepest truth, not about Valac alone, but about the seeker. For when you gaze upon the child riding the dragon, are you seeing a demon, or your own soul reflected in its duality? And that takes us to the last veil, where initiation itself becomes the question. In the old descriptions of Valac demon, the most haunting image is not the serpents nor the treasures, but the child riding a two-headed dragon. Those who ask who is Valac often overlook this vision, yet it is the very heart of the Valac real story. The Ars Goetia. Valac depicts him as angelic and innocent, yet seated on chaos itself. The dragon is temptation, danger, forbidden knowledge. The child is purity, innocence, the seeker's soul. The Valac explained in detail tradition shows that the two are inseparable. To look upon this image is to confront the paradox of existence. Light guiding shadow, shadow carrying light. This vision isn't just symbolic, it is initiatory. The Valac true origin reveals that the child and dragon represent the seeker's journey. Every soul begins as pure, yet quickly finds itself mounted upon forces it cannot control. Desires, fears, obsessions. The demon Valac truth reminds us that the ride is inevitable. The only question is whether we steer or are devoured. In this sense, the Valac occult truth is not only about demons, but about self-mastery. To see yourself as the child upon the dragon is to realize your life is already bound to forces beyond your control. The challenge is whether you learn to ride them or fall beneath their weight. Think of how this plays out in real life. A young entrepreneur launches a business with good intentions, yet quickly becomes trapped by greed and ambition. A parent begins raising a child with love, only to be consumed by fear, control, and obsession. These are modern examples of the Valac mythology in motion. The child is the original purity, the dragon, the unleashed serpent of desire. The Valac explained archetype teaches us that every treasure, every ambition, comes with serpents coiled around it. The seeker must decide, will they cling to innocence while commanding chaos, or surrender innocence and be ruled by it? The two-headed dragon is also crucial. One head offers wisdom, the other destruction. Those who chase only wealth, guided by the Valac spirit demon, may find themselves swallowed by greed. Those who ignore desire altogether may fall into despair. The Valac demonic entity forces us to confront duality itself. To balance the two heads is to live between extremes, never fully safe, never fully lost. This is why Valac horror movies never capture the depth. They show the mask of fear, but not the symbolic test of balance. The Valac real explanation requires us to sit upon the dragon ourselves, trembling yet aware. Hollywood's Valac nun may terrify, but the Grimoires' child on the dragon unsettles in a far deeper way. It suggests that the seeker is not separate from the demon, but is reflected in him. The Valac conjuring demon is entertainment, but the Valac demonic nun archetype is initiation disguised as fear. The real story of Valac shows the child as our inner self, innocence tested by serpents. The demon Valac explained here becomes less about summoning an external entity and more about recognizing the dragon beneath our own feet. Each choice, each obsession, each temptation is another head of the beast we already ride. This is why obsession with Valac real demon is so dangerous. To meditate upon him, to whisper his name, is to invite the realization that you are already entangled in the same paradox. The Valac Goetia teaches that treasures, serpents, and duality are inseparable. And so, the seeker who stares too long at this vision begins to see themselves reflected back. The Valac obsession grows not because of external power, but because the symbol resonates with the very structure of human desire. He is mirror, test, and tempter all in one. The Valac explained in detail, path does not end, it deepens endlessly. So the child upon the dragon is not only Valac, it is also you. Every dream you chase, every fear you battle, every desire you suppress, these are the reins in your hands. The dragon waits, restless, demanding to be steered. And the question the Grimoires leave us with is chilling. Are you the rider, or are you the prey? Perhaps the Valac demonic entity is less about external summoning and more about self-recognition. For in the end, when you search for hidden treasure, are you summoning Valac or is Valac summoning you? And that unanswered riddle leaves the seeker trembling, wondering what veil must be lifted next. Now that you've walked through the forbidden whispers, the serpents, the treasures, and the masks of Valac demon, let me ask you, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep treating him as just a horror character from the Conjuring demon? Or will you dare to reflect on the Valac real story and how it mirrors your own hidden desires? Think about it. How often do you chase treasures without noticing the serpents wrapped around them? How many times do you fall for illusions that look angelic, only to discover the dragon beneath? The Valac explained in detail tradition is not only about demons, it's about the way we live, the bargains we make, and the price we're willing to pay. So, do you feel the chains tightening, or are you ready to break free? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your reflection may be the very key someone else needs. And if you want to keep uncovering the truths hidden behind myths, religions, and horror films, then subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, and never miss the next revelation. The journey is only beginning, and trust me, what comes next will shake you even more.